All right, welcome back. As promised, I'm joined by Ben Troupe. Ben's been a guest on this show before. He is a former Florida Gator. Despite that, I still like him a lot. He is a former NFL player. I know he talks a lot of SEC sports, a lot of Florida Gators sports. So we're going to start with some SEC talk, and then we'll get into some National Football League talk, some of the coaching moves, talk a little bit about the playoffs, championship weekend roundup, a little bit of the Super Bowl preview, and we're going to continue our discussion on diversity in Hollywood, the Oscars So White movement, and talk a little bit about some other topics. We might talk some basketball talk if we get time, if we have time. But I definitely want to ask him about reparations to a guy that I really like a lot, has written about that. I want to get Ben's thoughts on that. But let's start with some SEC talk. But by the way, Ben, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. I gotta make this more of a usual thing.
I know. We need to do better. I wanted to have you back on before the end of the year, and it just didn't happen. There's so much going on right now. It's kind of hard to, to really figure out what's popping and what's not. But definitely what's popping right now is college football, because signing day is just around the corner, February the 3rd. A lot of it's been set, but there are some guys out there who have not made their intentions known. Who are some of the big names that people are watching right now? And then we'll talk about some of the individual signing classes.
I know you got a lot of. I know the guy Easton who's going to Georgia. I know you got. It seems to be surrounding a lot around like defensive players now. Like what's pretty interesting is the fact that it used to be, obviously it's quarterback driven no matter what it is, whether it's college, NFL. But I think when you see when things like I always say, whatever happens in the NFL trickles down, and you see what the Von Millers and the D Wares and the Luke Kuechly's and the Thomas Davises of the world does for college football. It's almost like, when people say things, I don't remember the young man's name, but I think he plays defense. The guy who Jim Harbaugh did a Netflix and chill night with. You got coaches going. You got coaches who's understanding. Listen, man, I can win with a quarterback who's solid, but I cannot win without a solid defense. Like it's not going. It's not going to happen. So, I think those defensive players appreciate it, because let's face it, if everybody wants to be the quarterback coming out of high school, because you're the most popular guy in school, you're the most popular guy on the team, and you get the ink in the paper simply because you got stats that show up on a stat sheet. But a guy that has 150 tackles, it might show up, but then again it might not. So I think what's really happened as far as like college recruiting, I mean, is the fact that these defensive players, they're just as big, if not bigger, than these offensive players. I mean, you got the guy, I think his name is something Gardner, Chauncey Gardner. I think he's going to Florida. He's at the Army All-American game talking to an LSU recruit about DBU, who's going to have the best DB. It's like this debate that went on with college players last year has trickled down into the high school ranks. So I think it's great, because far too many guys do a lot for their teams, not just on the offensive side, but just on the defensive side. And I'm just starting to see a lot of defensive guys, these defensive backs and D linemen. They getting as much publicity as these high school quarterbacks, and I think it's right that they're doing it that way.
Yeah, you went through this process. What is it like to go through the recruiting process as a player and have to decide, between what school you want to attend, and how did you go about making that decision?
Well, it's humbling, first and foremost. I mean, because I got recruited way back in 2000. Me and Carlos Rogers ended up going to the University of Albany, won the defensive back award year, and I've been an All-Pro for the San Francisco 49ers. But the thing about us, what was great, we were naive, because we were the first big recruits. I mean, we had guys go to, Albany State and Valdosta State, but nothing is, nothing like, we go to a spring practice. That's back when they had 114 Division I teams. It's obviously more now. They was all on the sideline watching us practice. And it's humbling, because at the end of the day, it's just football. And I always tell people, it's nothing that I did so great in high school to warrant that type of attention. But it goes. But I had a great head coach who did a great job. Who I always tell people, I said, your greatest recruiter will be your high school football coach. And if he's not, you won't go to college. And we had an opportunity to have our pick of the litter. But I mean, I was a young, I was really a football player, like in its essence. I didn't know about spatting up. I didn't know about All-Americans. I knew nothing about this stuff. So when people say you were All-American and you were a prep star, I'm like, man, listen. I read the newspaper because our team was in the newspaper. I didn't read it for, to see who's going where. But I credit my entire career to my parents, to my coaches, because my parents made sure I took my education seriously. My coach made sure I took my education seriously. That way, he used to reference it to baked macaroni and cheese. He said nobody wants to eat half cooked baked macaroni and cheese. Nobody. And he said it's almost like when a coach comes to your house, he's ready to eat. And if you're not ready, that's wasting his time. And that reference makes so much sense. It's like if Sharon, somebody tell you, hey man, I'm cooking baked macaroni and cheese, like, all right, you get over there and it's half cooked. You're like, man, what is this? Like, don't nobody want this? So, and at the same time, it's so much different now than back then. I mean, now, you got the social media aspect. You got head coaches texting players, and the pressure is on these players more because they're coming in as, it's like celebrities already. You got guys walking on campuses. People know who you are. And the downside is you got these adults putting pressure on these 17, 18, 19-year-old young men to go to their school, and when they don't pick it, they act a little crazy. So, but I mean, it comes with it.
It is.
Oh, it's when I used to be on when I used to write for Southern Picking, at that time I actually wrote an article about like how we as adults need to stay in adult places and stop stooping down, knowing good and well if these players were to retaliate because you're sitting behind a computer screen pressing send, I think that's a bit much.
Yeah, the advent of social media has changed the game in a lot of good ways. Ben and I have talked about how it's helped change social protests and the protest movement, but it does have a downside, and you definitely see that in recruiting. Adults, so-called adults, when recruits change their mind or commit to another school, the vitriol that is spewed at them it's just crazy. And, we really need to do a lot better with that. And you're right. Listen, I had Ralph Cindric on this show a couple of times, and he touched upon this. I want to get him back on. We'll talk about this in more detail. The NCAA is corrupt. The process is corrupt. Everybody knows that. There is an enormous amount of pressure on these young men because, despite what we pretend, student athletes, whatever, they're not student athletes. They're there to engage in a business that makes a ton of money, not just for these individual schools, but for the NCAA in general.
Yeah, one thing about the NCAA that people don't give them enough credit to is, one thing about the NCAA, when they did their first overall, when they was planning on how they're going to make money, they sat down with billionaires, in my opinion. And they said, listen, you have to plan for the future. And how you plan for the future is you have to put it in the NCAA guidelines and rules and language. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to be able to make millions upon millions, even billions of dollars using high school athletes. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them a scholarship. And whenever they try to demand money outside of scholarship, we're going to say you're an amateur. It falls under the word amateurism. And the thing about that is, it's funny that an amateur can be we're the number one revenue generator for these colleges and institutions, and our head coaches make millions of dollars and get $100,000 bonuses, and we get tuition, room and board, and food. And it's almost it's a level of disrespect because a head coach can decide to go to another school and they still have to pay him the rest of his contract. Whereas a player has to notify the school that I want to transfer, and they have to approve his transfer. It's like when you signing on that dotted line, you really, when people say, listen, man, know what you're doing before you do, I always tell players this. I said, listen, college football or college will be the greatest experience or the worst experience you're going to ever have in your life. I can't decide that for you because for every, Percy Harvin and Derrick Henry, you're going to have guys that's going to go there and say, I hated college. I hated what it did to me. I hated because what I thought, the lies that they tell, because one thing about these recruiting visits, it's not videotaped. See, we don't know what's being said, and that's the thing. It's like, listen, you mean to tell me that the number one quarterback in the country is going to the University of Georgia? There is no way that promises weren't made to him. Yeah. There is no, because when you think about it, if somebody says, what has Georgia done to warrant that? I don't know. The head coach isn't even there anymore. Kirby Smart is in there now. So it's almost like, I just think, you know, it goes back to what my agent said to me the reason why I chose him when I came out of college. He says, Bill, let me tell you something about people. If they're going to cheat you when they get you, they're going to cheat you after they get you, because that's how they got you. That's how they got you. Yeah. And I just think it's a travesty, because National Signing Day is great, but to some of these young men, that will be the first and last time we're ever going to see them and hear from them. Yeah. We're not going to see most of them again. And it's sad that they're going to go on location and, you know, somewhere in, you know, Montana to a young guy who's going to sign the UCLA, and you're never going to see him again. Yeah. And, you know, it's like he's saying himself, man, I went from a somebody to a nobody, because what they told me to get me here is not the same. Because, you know, it's like the movie, The Program, when Omar Epps get on campus. Yeah. He said, man, what happened to all the cheerleaders? He said, oh, man. He said, you know what, I would lie to you, but you just a little freshman. We got you now. It's like that stuff is just to get you here. But, you know, I said, you know, Sharon, I mean, I want to write a book one day. I don't know what I'm going to call it. But I think high school athletes really need to know how to pick a college, because I don't think they know how to do it. I think they're doing it because if I live in Tennessee and I grew up loving the Tennessee Vols, I might pick that school, not realizing that, well, you know, I played with oh man, I can't even, Troy Fleming. Troy Fleming was the number one running back in the country. It was only one person rushed for more yards than him. He had to play fullback. Yeah. You know, the Titans, exactly. So, and he even had to play fullback once he got to the Vols, because they already had Travis Henry, they already had Jamal Lewis. So I just think that, you know, these players are being manipulated, because these coaches know I hold your future in my hand, because I provide you playing time. I provide you, you know, media attention and popularity. So you can either come here and fall in line, or you can go to a smaller school and hope you make it. So I just think the players are at a disadvantage.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about Troy Fleming and what happened, what was going on with the Titans. We might actually, were you on? Well, I'll have to look that up. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the SEC signing classes. Florida right now, for rivals, Florida has the number 3 signing class, number 3 2016 signing class. What guys do you like from that class for Florida?
I mean, obviously, I like Franks. I like our quarterback. I even though he's not a part of the class, I like the young man transferring from Purdue. I think he's the front runner to be the quarterback next year. I like I like the young man Gardner. I like the DB. You know, we got. I think bigger than that, I like the fact that McElwain is really utilizing his strength. I think that people underestimated. I think people underestimate how great of a recruiter he was. He's like, listen, man. One reason why you get to be a head coach at Alabama, you got to have a recruiting credibility. Yeah. You're not going to get a head coach, and so what happens was, I think McElwain is showing the world, listen, if I know I was able to have a good season in a rebuilding year, but I'm going to show you why I was hired. Like, I won without guys I've never seen before. I walked on campus, and these guys are already here. So what I like about our class is, you know, he's taking the approach of having more than what you need. You're only getting 25 scholarships. He's going to have well over that as far as, like, guys. He got guys enrolling early, and it's sad for some of the guys that's there already on Florida, because they probably not going to be there if the guys enrolling early. So, and I just like the fact that, you know, I think we need more offensive linemen. I think it showed last year that you can never have enough good offensive linemen, because you need offensive linemen like you need defensive backs. I mean, you just do. They need to be interchangeable. But the fact that we got the number 3 class, and we even competing with an Ohio State, with an Alabama, we got a better signing class than Georgia. Or, you know, I think that speaks volumes, because you know, McElwain is letting people know, look, I'm here for the long haul, man. I'm not playing around. I know to be able to beat Alabama, you got to be able to get great players. Because if not, you know, you're gonna go to an SEC championship game. You're just not gonna win it.
There's not a lot of difference between the top 8 we'll talk 7. I'll go ahead and give the rundown. This is all per rivals. LSU with the number 1 recruiting class in the SEC. We're just talking SEC. Ben mentioned Ohio State. They have the top recruiting class in the nation. We're just focusing on SEC. Mississippi is second. Ben and I could have a great chat about. There's a lot of talk about Ole Miss. We'll not get into that, but a lot of people are suspicious. Florida, number 3. Alabama, of course, always recruits well, number 4. Texas A&M, number 5. I had Coach Daniel Sehorn on the show. It's been a few weeks ago. We were talking about the Kyler Murray situation with Texas A&M. They're still right now holding at number 5. Auburn, number 6. Georgia, number 7. And my school, Tennessee, number 8. And then the top 10, rounding out the top 10, Kentucky at 9, Arkansas at 6. We'll go ahead and go on down. South Carolina coming in at number 11, Mississippi State number 12, Vanderbilt number 13, Missouri dead last, 14. Of course, they're having a lot of issues with the NCAA right now, but the schools that generally compete, and compete well are in that top 10, and that recruiting is so important to that process, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, people always say, look 2 years after you wait 2 years after that recruiting class down and you see what you got. I mean, nobody could foresee Derrick Henry becoming the player he became.
Yeah.
Nobody, and I think, even a guy like Coker, even though he wasn't in the recruiting. Yeah, man, he's an incredible player. And I know the Carolina Panthers. I hope they listen. If they get the 32nd pick in the draft, that's a guy I think they should get. Derrick Henry going to Carolina. Oh God, that'll be almost cheating. But recruiting is, to me, is the most important aspect of college because it decides the future of these universities. I mean, it decides the future of these institutions. I mean, no matter what nobody say, Steve Spurrier said it the best. You're going to win games without talent, but you're not going to win the games without the talent. You need talent to be successful in college. And you see how successful Steve Spurrier was when he had Jadeveon Clowney on his team. He goes 11-2 3 years in a row. He leaves 1 year and it goes downhill. Even take nothing away from Connor Shaw, which I think had an incredible career, at South Carolina. But Butch Jones and Hugh Freeze and these Summerlin, they know that I got to be able to get some of the top recruits in the country to even look legitimate. And Summerlin was looking like he was looking brilliant when he had Kenny Trill until it went bad. Yeah. And then it's like people go from, oh man, well maybe it wasn't Johnny Manziel, maybe it was the system. Then people say, oh maybe it was Johnny. It's you're attached to these recruiting classes. You're attached to these 17, 18-year-old young men for whom, listen, I know some of them not gonna pan out, but it's like, hey, it's really a gamble. It's really like going to Vegas. You really don't know what you have. Because some of these guys, coming from small divisions in these high schools, they were great players. But it's like, hey man, everybody looking to have a Derrick Henry now. So those big backs, that's gonna be popular now. Just like, Antonio Brown is the reason why people want short and Judy Adams, they want short, shifty receivers now. It's like it's a trend. So I just think that recruiting is the most important aspect of college because let's face it. Whenever that team start doing well, they say, oh, this was a 2016, 2017 recruiting class that they got out there. So, it's definitely the most important aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what they say, it's not just the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And, you gotta have both, really. And then that's kind of where Tennessee is. Ben and I've talked about that. They've got a lot of Jimmies and Joes. They've definitely improved the talent. We'll see how Butch Jones does. But you got to win the SEC East this year, buddy. I'm just telling you, keep reminding you. Sharona's watching you. Let's go ahead and turn to the NFL and talk some National Football League. It was a big weekend. Sharona was actually in Charlotte covering the NFC Championship game. That was a great experience. But we'll talk about the AFC. The AFC Championship game first. Ben, did you get an opportunity to watch that game?
Of course, man, it was a great game. I mean, I think it was one of the best outside of the Arizona Green Bay game. I think it was one of the best games in the playoffs thus far.
Yeah, it came down to the wire. I didn't get a chance to see as much of the first half as I wanted to. I got to the stadium sometime during the first half, and I saw the score, and I was like, whoa. Listen, I wasn't giving Denver much of a chance at all. As big of a Peyton Manning fan as I am, and as much as I like the Broncos, I wasn't giving them much of a chance. I kept saying they were going to have to rely on their defense. And they did. That defense is amazing. DeMarcus Ware is having such a fantastic year. Von Miller, Ethan Wolf, they are loaded. Malik Jackson, former Tennessee guy, they are loaded for bear. You mentioned this earlier when we were talking SEC, and the quarterback position is so important. But truly, defense does win championships, doesn't it, Ben?
Oh yeah. I mean, no better example of that in the AFC Championship game. You know what? When I was first asked about who's going to win the AFC Championship, I said it was Denver, and the reason why I said it was because Peyton Manning is a different guy now. Like he's not. Whenever it's funny. Whenever Peyton Manning for his 14 years in the Indianapolis Colts, he never had a defense to lean on. He knew coming to the game, I got to outscore the other team. I got to put up 30. Whereas when you get a chance to do what he's done, like take a step back and you realize that my skills are diminishing, I got benched. Peyton Manning got benched, which I never thought I would see. But at the same time, yeah, exactly. And so I think what happened was he even said, listen, man, we've got to get on the strength of our defense.
He had to do some soul searching, didn't he?
Yeah. But to me, if you weren't a fan of Peyton Manning before, you should have been a fan after that game because it takes the highest level of humility to do what he's done because he's been at the top of his game and of his sport since he's walked in there, and to be able to say, you know what, I'm gonna let my defense lead me. I mean, the reason why they won that game is because Peyton Manning didn't try to force anything. He took what the defense gave him. He went to his matchups. Owen Daniels had a great game. Demaryius Thomas, I'm still trying to figure out who he is right now in the playoffs. I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Demaryius Thomas. He's from Dublin, Georgia. I'm from Swainsboro, Georgia. He's from we like from 30 miles from each other. Only reason why I know what Dublin is because I'm from Swainsboro and vice versa. You know what Swainsboro is because he's from Dublin. It's so small, but it's like it's one of those. Peyton Manning. He really sat back and watched his defense work. I mean, Von Miller and DeMarcus, you talking about two guys who were made for each other. These guys, and Von Miller, listen, Von Miller, I know J.J. Watt is a $100 million player. If Von Miller isn't a $100 million player, you're never going to see one again as far as defense goes. This guy can do whatever you ask him to do. I mean, take nothing away from Rob Gronkowski. This guy's worth every penny. I mean, the mere fact that he keeps playing, but I think I wanted Peyton Manning to win this game only because people focus on the Brady versus Manning, but people forget Brady versus Manning in the games that matter. Peyton Manning's 3-1. AFC Championship games, he's 3-1.
Yeah.
I mean, you beat me in the regular season, but you only beat me one time when it mattered.
Yeah.
When it mattered the most, you only beat me one time. So, Peyton Manning did a great job. That defense did a great job. Taking nothing away from Tom Brady and those guys, but the difference, for Tom Brady and the Patriots to be in the red zone as many times as they did and to come away with no points like that, you're not going to see that.
Yeah.
And a lot of respect goes to Tom Brady. When they asked him after the game, he said, listen, no excuses from me. I ain't got one because if I win, I'm the greatest. But when I lose, it's the offensive line. Well, I played with a bad offensive line all year. It took the best defense in football to really exploit that.
Yeah. We were talking about this game last night on my Tuesday night show for NFL Female, and we talked about it with Sonia Greenfield, who's also on this podcast today. The Denver defense really took Tom Brady's lunch money and it made him go back in the classroom and sit down and take a nap because it was. He was pressured all game long. He was still able to make some fantastic plays. The pass to Rob Gronkowski for that last touchdown was one of the best plays I've ever seen. I mean, it was amazing. But you're right. The Denver defense it's absolutely fantastic. Let's go ahead and talk about the NFC Championship game. I want to get your thoughts. We'll talk about the Super Bowl as well. I don't know that Cam Newton has faced a defense like that Denver defense. Arizona's got a great defense. The Seahawks have a great defense. The St. Louis Rams, I think, did they face them? I can't remember if they played them.
Yeah, they played them, yeah.
So, they've definitely got, a good defense. But Denver's defense is just playing on another level right now. And Cam Newton is playing on another level. Let's talk about that NFC Championship game. I thought it was going to be a closer football game. What was your impression of it?
I had Carolina winning. I didn't have them winning going away like that. I thought that there would be a lot more competitive game. I thought it would come down to the fourth quarter. Cam would have to make a play, but you know what? Credit goes to that defense over there, Carolina too. I mean, I know that Cam and those guys found ways to make plays, and but they you know what? They found ways to get their playmakers the ball. The creative ways they did for Ted Ginn Jr. And obviously Cam is gonna be Cam, but Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, these guys get out. They play some ball. I mean, they have got arguably the best linebacking core in the game right now. Luke Kuechly, I mean, two straight weeks of interceptions for touchdowns. But enough can't be said about Cam Newton, in my opinion. I was watching something on Facebook, and people forget how bad they drugged him when he got drafted first overall.
Oh yeah.
I mean, all the pundits, all the experts saying, oh well, he was a run first quarterback in college. He was a first read guy in colleges. It's more the college is saying the third. And it's funny. I said Cam celebrates the way he celebrates.
Yeah.
That's a way of saying, eat your words without actually saying it. Because he knows now, if I say anything about how people used to talk about him, people are going to take it and run with it. They're going to, he's this and he's that. But I don't think people understand the fact that how much of a student of the game he is. Cam Newton, he understands defenses. He understands what they're trying to do to him. And I think what scares people is the reason why Tom Brady's good, the reason why Aaron Rodgers is good, the reason why they understand what you're trying to do to them. So you can't beat me if I know what you're trying to do. The difference with Cam is that's 6'5", 250, 260 pounds coming at you. Those are business decisions for these defensive backs.
Yeah.
He put it all together in the NFC Championship game. He did not. He had that one interception, but the thing was, he wasn't forcing anything. He got the ball out of his hands, and I think Cam Newton, in my opinion, doesn't get enough credit, just like a Russell Wilson, for doing more with less. I mean, let's face it. I don't know if other quarterbacks will be able to win with just Greg Olsen and Ted Ginn Jr. as your best receiver. And I don't know if other players will be able to utilize, the talent, because there is no Steve Smith over the explosive type receiver on their team yet. They 15-1 or 17-1. So Carson Palmer, I believe Carson Palmer went back to his old. Carson Palmer throws a lot of interceptions. He just didn't throw a lot this year, but the Carson Palmer from Cincinnati, the Carson Palmer from Oakland, he just showed up on Sunday. And you pick the worst game to have your worst game. And take nothing away from Bruce Arians, Larry Fitzgerald, and that defense, that whole team, but you can't make mistakes against great teams, because they're gonna exploit you from it. They're gonna make you look bad. And the play of the game was Ted Ginn Jr. Running down Patrick Peterson. That is the play. That dude ran down a guy that's just as fast as he is, and it just shows that Riverboat Ron, his job was in jeopardy about 2 years ago. This man is doing something I've never seen.
Yeah. I thought that talk was ridiculous. I want to circle back and touch upon, you made some really great points there. First of all, Cam Newton. Some of the things that were said about that young man when he was coming out of Auburn and in the draft process were revolting. And I've been a Cam Newton fan going back to his SEC days, going back to Auburn. And I know he was a Florida Gator, briefly too. But some of the things that were said about him were revolting. They smacked of racism, and I began defending Cam early on. And what he was doing in the first, second, and third year of his career was pretty amazing. And people weren't recognizing that he was already on his way. But as Ben mentioned, he's a student of the game. He was improving. He was getting better. And what we're seeing this year is really, Cam putting it all together. And he is, if he's not there, he's very, very, very close to becoming the superstar that he wants to be. And it's been fun to watch. I enjoy watching Cam Newton play. I enjoy, how much fun he's having out there. And I agree with you, Ben. I think that the celebrations is his way. First of all, he's having fun. And second, it's a way of saying hi to the haters. Everybody who said, and I think, I don't like to talk about Skip Bayless because he likes to be talked about, and that's, I don't like to do it. But, his tweet that he would rather have Josh Freeman over Cam Newton and all of that, I mean, it's his way of saying, hi, haters, I'm here. Look at me now. How do you like me now? That kind of thing. So how do you think that Carolina stacks up against Denver in this Super Bowl?
I think it's the best possible scenario. Number one in the NFC versus number one in the AFC. I think you got the number one defense in football going up against the number one offense. To me, this is why you love football. You want to, because let's face it, DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, they saying, look, we was able to stop Tom Brady, but he's a statue. He just sits in the pocket. Yeah. The goal with the statue is to get it off his foundation. It's gonna crumble, which is what they were able to do. They know that Cam Newton, he's a full arsenal. I call Cam Newton the exception because to every rule, there is an exception, and I think that's what he is. He does things like, you can't throw off your back foot until he does it. You can't do this until Cam does it. And I think Cam looks at people and says, listen, this conventional drop back, I got to do this type of Cam Newton is revitalizing the versatile quarterback, the Randall Cunninghams, the Donovan McNabbs, the Steve McNabb. And let's face it, African-American quarterbacks wasn't looking too good up until that point. I mean, I love Vince Young. I love Jamarcus Russell, but when you don't play well and you're a black quarterback, you're not unfortunately, they represent the future crop. Thank God for a Russell Wilson. Thank God for a Colin Kaepernick. Thank God for a Cam Newton. Because now, watch how many mobile quarterbacks, get drafted now. Those guys who used to come out of college say, he's an athlete, so I don't know where we're going to put him. It's one of those things to where I like Steve Young. I think because Steve Young was as successful as he was, I listen to him when he talks about Cam Newton. But then you got Trent Dilfer. When I say to myself, Trent Dilfer, you won the Super Bowl because you played for the Ravens in 2000. You need to stop it. Good and well, you wouldn't have won it. I try to stay neutral in my approach, but at the same time, Cam Newton is box office. Cam Newton is the reason why Carolina's on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, playing on Thanksgiving. Because I think Charlotte is a nice city, but unless you know people from there, you ain't dropping. You ain't going to Charlotte. You have no reason to go. But Cam Newton is a reason to go. I always say if you're willing to pay money to see somebody play, they box office. And hey, man, the man is box office. I think the Super Bowl gonna be great. But I think DeMarcus Ware and them ain't gonna say it. But Cam Newton scares people to death. He's afraid of Kruger. He scares people to death because he can do anything.
He's the total package.
Yeah, he is, man. He's the man. Yeah.
I don't know why I keep thinking that you were on that 2008 Titans playoff team. You weren't. You had gone to Tampa. But you were on the 2007 team. That team was not as good.
I was on the wait a minute. I was on the 2008 playoff team that played San Diego.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on that team. Yeah, I was on that team. Yeah.
What's it like?
We should have it's funny. We should have won that game. We had to play. It was Vince, it was our first playoff game. Vince Young's first playoff game. And, we lost that game. I can say it now. We did not lose that game because of Vince and whomever. We lost the game because of Norm Chow. Yeah. And that play call was a little bit rough. But,
I did not.
LaDainian told me,
I did not like Norm Chow. I complained. We could do an entire show.
He's a college guy. Like, take nothing away from him. And rest in peace, Mike Heimerdinger. Mike Heimerdinger, he was my my offensive coordinator my rookie year. I became a professional because of this man, because he cut no corners with me. He kept it. Yeah. He kept it about his cut and dry. But I've never seen that many celebrities on the sideline before. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it look like the the red carpet out here.
Mike Heimerdinger, rest in peace to that guy, was the best offensive coordinator Jeff Fisher has ever had. And
he was.
We could have an entire show about how Jeff Fisher can't pick up an offensive coordinator to save his life, except for that guy. But I wanted to ask you, what is it like as a professional player to make the playoffs?
It's the culmination of a. It's like the reward for a good season. Like everybody coming into the season wants to be one of those, those top 12 teams that make it. But you realize how hard it is, and it's funny. We played San Diego. I think that either week 15 or week 16 or something like that. And when we found out we had to play, we played them in Nashville. It was a close game. When we found out we were playing them again, man, it's a blessing, man, because you understand how hard it is. And as much as you've done interviews throughout the course of the year, you haven't seen anything like it. I mean, it was people in Nashville that probably didn't even know it was in Tennessee. I mean, we had media from everywhere, but it was great. It was great. We lost the game, but it shows that, Coach Fisher, man, I mean, class act dude, man. Like, he lost a long plane ride back, but he kept saying on the loudspeaker, I appreciate you guys' effort. Like, I don't want you guys to think that I feel as though we had a losing season because we lost. The better team won. Yeah. And, I think it shows the character of him because, it hurts, man. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Yeah. I mean, the playoffs is a different kind of loss because it's like if you ain't going to the playoffs, you like, let's get this last game out the way. Yeah. I can start my vacation. But when you lose in the playoffs, it's like a piece of you just leaves. You're like, what's wrong with me? The food don't taste as good. This, that, and the thing. But hey, man, it's LaDainian Thompson, man. He was out. That was when LaDainian was LaDainian. And he was out of this world, so. Yeah. And we barely lost him. It was actually a very, very competitive game.
It was. Back then, that was when the San Diego Chargers really had the Tennessee Titans number. That team was their Achilles heel. They really struggled to beat that team. I was actually at the home game when the Titans finally got that monkey off their back. Was that 2012 maybe? Yeah. But anyway, I had to ask you about that. You mentioned Ted Ginn. Obviously, Greg Olsen and Cam Newton have a special relationship. A guy that you need to watch out for, rising young wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, Corey Philly Brown. They call him Philly Brown. His middle name is Philip. They call him Philly Brown. He really came on in that NFC Championship game. He led the team in receptions, had the touchdown. He, undrafted guy, a guy that you can really pull for. I like to pull for these, undrafted free agents who make the most of their opportunities. And he's a guy that I think Cam Newton is becoming a lot more comfortable with. And I'm anxious to see how, he matches up with Chris Harris is probably going to be on Ted Ginn. How he matches up with Denver's secondary. It's going to be a great game. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to turn to the Oscars. Oscars So White, Diversity in Hollywood. We're going to talk about a very interesting story that came out this week about Michael Jackson, a movie that's being made in England about Michael Jackson. So stay tuned in. You're listening to Back Talk with Sharona. All right, welcome back. Ben, I want to thank you for joining me once again. It's always such a pleasure. I'm keeping you a little bit long, but there's a lot to talk about, and I want to get your thoughts on the Oscars So White. I don't want to call it a controversy, but, it is interesting that Hollywood just can't seem to get right. Diversity is still very much an issue. What do you make of all of this?
When I first heard about the situation, I mean, about the Jada Pinkett Smith and nobody getting nominated and things of that nature, I looked at it like this. I said, okay, while I understand that people want recognition for their, artistic expression and things of that nature, you don't beg a person to show up to their party. If they don't want you to show up to their party, listen, man, you go enjoy yourself. You still have, it's almost like you still got the Image Awards, the NAACP Awards, the BT Awards, the Gospel Awards, the Stellar Awards. It's a lot of ways that you get recognition. But I do like the fact that they got Chris Rock as the host. If anybody was best suited to be the host, and because one thing about it, man, is Chris Rock didn't need no material, but he'll take it. Yeah. He'll definitely, because for two things. One, Chris Rock is very, social conscious. He's intelligent, but he's a comedian, so he can say whatever he wants and get away with it. And Jada Pinkett Smith, while I understand why she's doing what she's doing, it takes away from what people. You can't listen. Straight Outta Compton was a great movie. Concussion was a great movie. I saw Beast of No Nation. I thought it was a good movie. Creed was a good movie. And the thing is, just because you didn't get nominated doesn't mean that you're not being recognized. My senior year in college, I was recognized as one of the top tight ends. I was up for the tight end award. I never said I wanted to win the John Mackey. I never said I was in college to do it. But if those accolades come, they come. But if they don't come, it doesn't take away from what you've done. And whenever you bring so much attention to the Oscars are so white, the Oscars is always going to be white. It ain't going to, even if you got nominated, that's 2 nominations. I think what it does is it brings negative attention to something that I don't think the Oscars meant to do. Now, when the president comes out and say we're going to do a better job, now I think that's ridiculous. You know exactly who gets nominated. How are you going to not know who gets nominated? But it's a catch-22 because Sharon, I never ever worry about what doesn't happen. If I don't get the call, I don't get the call. It's like to say if I'm up for the Hall of Fame, just to be a finalist is a blessing. But even if you don't get the call, don't mean you're not one of the best. And just because you didn't get nominated for Best Picture doesn't mean your pictures wasn't one of the best ones. It's a lot of movies, in my opinion, that should be in these categories other than the ones that get nominated or the actors that get nominated. But I don't think that Hollywood has done anything different now than it's always done. I just think because, like you say, because of the social media presence and the pressure that comes with it being a trending topic, I just think more attention is being placed on it now.
I think that Viola Davis probably had the best take, in my opinion. She said that the Oscars so white discussion was just symptomatic of a larger issue. And part of that is that Hollywood is still stuck in linear mode. Hollywood is still stuck in its old school linear mode thinking that in order to, first of all, creativity is at an all-time low in Hollywood. You see that in no better example than in all the remakes that you're seeing right now, the remake movement, remaking this, remaking that. These big studios don't seem to have the ability to go out and find these, and there are independent thinkers out there. There are some great indie movies that are being made that don't follow that linear mode. And by linear mode, let's say Draft Day as a perfect example of that linear mode type thinking. Draft Day, a movie about that purports to be about the National Football League and the draft process. Kevin Costner is the main character there, white man, main character as the general manager for the Cleveland Browns. They did cast a woman in a role, a fairly powerful role there, but she was very secondary. She was Kevin Costner's love interest. Two people working together. First of all, it was just revolting to me as a woman that Jennifer Gardner, who did a great job, by the way, she could not be a force on her own. She had to be a secondary character as the love interest to Kevin Costner. And lo and behold, at the very end, bumping boots, here she is pregnant. And that's that linear mode that you can't make a movie without, that kind of storytelling. And it's old thinking. If we're ever going to get past that, Hollywood has to realize and recognize that linear mode is outmoded. It's outdated. There are a lot of great creative storytelling that takes place out there that doesn't follow that. It doesn't follow that linear mode. And I don't know if we're ever going to get there, but hopefully we will. And here's the other thing, and this is another problem that Hollywood suffers from, and that is an inability to cast outside that linear mode. And there was an article this week. They're making a Michael Jackson movie in Great Britain, over in England. Joseph Fiennes, who I love. He's a great actor. He's not hard on the eyes at all. He's fantastic. I love him to little pieces. But a white man, is being cast in the role of Michael Jackson. And that is just wrong on so many different levels. Why not cast? That there are black actors available. Why not cast a black actor?
I mean, I think you bringing up the linear mode is spot on. It's one of those things to where, and this is what I truly believe. I truly believe Hollywood is afraid to go against the grain because it might just work.
Yeah.
If we go against the grain and we stop doing African American movies like 12 Years a Slave and the Django and things of that nature, like even when Ice Cube said, yeah, if I would have put a slave in my movie Ride Along, it would have been, Straight Outta Compton, it would have got. It's almost like to say, even with the Michael Jackson movie, the mere fact that you can let a white man be cast for a black character in real life, it's ridiculous on so many levels, because it shows that Hollywood is really is okay to just go with that. Now let a light skinned black man play Elvis, they're gonna go crazy. They'll be like, wait, what? Let a I'm telling you, they're gonna go. They will lose their mind. Oh, bigger than that. Let a mixed woman play Princess Diana.
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, what? Who? They would look, and it's almost like it's going to take a person like a Tyler Perry. It takes people who have the ability to have movies on the big screen in the box office in these theaters to do it. And the thing is, I even look at Tyler Perry. Why I applaud his artistic expression, the way he does it. He's going to have to go against the grain, because no matter what he does, he fits into a mode of doing things a certain way. And Hollywood, we're not afraid of Tyler Perry because he doesn't really push the envelope. Not a movie War Room, if you've ever seen it, that was looked upon to not even do great at the box office. At one point, it was number one.
Yeah.
So with the with the mindset, I think what happens with Hollywood is this: I believe, Sharon, there are people who want to go against the grain, but there's so many of the majority that look at them and say, you better not do it, because they will look at you as the black sheep. They will cast you out. It's going to take the Steven Spielbergs of the world. And now you got Quentin Tarantino, who I don't think he do white movies anymore. I don't even think he do them. I don't even think he want to do them. But they're trying to cast him out of different things. But I mean, I just think it's one of those things to where, as African American or Latina actors, actresses, your job is just to continue to be great actors on the screen. That's all you can control, because if people been doing, it's almost like, say, I look at it like this: whenever Hollywood decide to go against the grain, NCAA start paying players. Yeah. I mean, it's that because one thing has everything to do with the next. And nobody wants to be the first. People don't want to be pioneers of change. Like, no, man, what's wrong with it? I'd rather be. If the NFL would give $800 million for the concussion situation instead of for the settlement, instead of showing what they got, that's what they rather do. I'd rather give you money than to show you what I have.
Yeah.
So I just think
You're right. People would rather be comfortable than uncomfortable. And to be a groundbreaker, to go against the grain, is to be uncomfortable. And, it takes a special person to do that. I want to finish up real quick. because we are going to, with football winding down, we've got one more big game. And, of course, college football is year-round, but still, we're starting to talk a lot about some of the other issues I've been promising you guys we would talk about. Mental health, we talk about that with Sonia Greenfield on this show today, and politics. And one thing I want to ask Ben about is reparations. Bernie Sanders is under fire, right now for his position opposing reparations. A guy that I admire so much. It's definitely bucket list stuff for me to get him on this show. It'll never happen. But Ta-Nehisi Coates, did I pronounce that right, Ben?
Uh-huh.
Okay. He's a guy who's written a lot about this. He wrote a great article back in 2004, The Case for Reparations, and he has also written a couple of different opinion pieces about it, saying that Bernie Sanders, his position is in opposition to that. Bernie Sanders is very progressive. He is he is the most progressive candidate in the race, in the 2016 presidential race. But he opposes it. I want to get your thoughts on that, Ben. How do you feel about it? Is Bernie Sanders right or wrong for opposing reparations from your perspective?
Oh, he's opposing it?
He is opposing it.
I don't necessarily think he's wrong. I just think that's the position that he's taken. I think that the reparations is one of those things to where it's because who wants it.
Yeah.
If slavery was reversed and black people was slave owners and white people were slaves, reparations will be given out right now. I mean, it's coming because it's almost like this. It's Bernie Sanders, in my opinion. I agree with you. I think he's the most progressive. I think the guy is about as blunt as it gets, but I think he understands what the world, when he says things like, it's disrespectful that most of the world lives on minimum wage and y'all rich people are mad because they want more. How are you supposed to live? But when it comes to a situation like reparations, yes, most white people in the world today had nothing to do with slavery, but a lot of white people are benefiting from the slave industry. You are still benefiting from it. So when it comes to reparations, the reason why they want that discussion to kind of go away, because where do you begin to even start sending these reparations out? Who do you give it to? How do you give it to them? How much do they get? And the last thing, and I'm talking about the rich white people in the world. The last thing they want to talk about is giving money to black people for something that they had nothing to do with, but they benefit from.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things to where, if Donald Trump said I didn't come from much, I got $1 million loan for my father. If I could speak to Donald Trump, I would say, the average person would love to get $1 million. The average person would love to get $10,000 or $100,000. You got $1 million loan from your father. How in the world do you consider yourself? I didn't come from much when I had to give $1 million. Man, I think Bernie Sanders insane. Yeah, Bernie Sanders to me, in order to be the president of the United States, you have to be able to appeal with the common man.
Yeah,
you just have to. And if you can appeal to the common man, the common man looks at you and says, "This is the person that has my best interest in mind." Billionaires don't appeal to the common man. You just can't, because in your mind you think, well, why people want money? I mean, this and the third. But I mean, it's reparations is always going to be a catchy subject because. Like I say, it comes down. It's because who is asking for, or really who deserves it. You got to think if LaDainian Thomas
and where it comes from.
Exactly. It's a LaDainian Thomason was on NFL Life, and he got to meet. He found out that his last name is Thomason because he met the guy who in a thing called Tomlinson Mountain. Or Thomason Hill, and the guy who owned his family, his last white guy, his name was Thomason, and he said, "My family used to own your family. That's why your last name is Thomason." Now you think about that.
Yeah.
The person who used to own, I mean, I'm owning people like they're a piece of property, and you mean to tell me because people, it's almost like, listen, if I've been in jail for 30 years for being falsely convicted, I want my money. I could have been working for 30 years, but if I was working for you for 30 years for nothing. I think and your family is now one of the wealthiest families in the country. You benefited from my hard work. I just want to leave something back, but I just think that the government, just like the NFL, just like Hollywood, they rather be comfortable in not talking about it than to be uncomfortable to bring it up.
Yes. And you're right, Bernie. You know, in order to win the nomination, in order to win the election, you have to appeal to a wide range of interests. And Bernie Sanders is being very, you know, the reparations discussion it's important. It's got so many layers. It's very complex. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time. I hope you'll come back, Ben, and we can talk about that in more detail. Talk about the election in more detail. I've kept you far too long. I tell everybody once again where they can find you out there and catch your podcast, your radio show, and all that good stuff.
I mean, well, you can always find me on Twitter at Ben Troupe 84, as well as Instagram of Ben Troupe 84. You can go to the Huddlecast or the Huddle Network, or huddlecast.com, and you look for the Florida Huddle. Me and Max Stars, we try to, we trying to keep our names relevant when it comes to this college football stuff. I know we've been out of the game for a minute. A lot of different cameos. I mean, I do the Louis Scrubs show every Thursday. I do the Tom Abrams show every Monday. I do 3 and Out every Wednesday. Radio is definitely my new love interest. As I tell my wife, she don't mind me cheating on her with the radio airways.
Well, you're very good at it.
So yeah, and at the same time too, I hope to be on here a lot more because
I hope so too.
Stephen A. Smith said the best. He said, I don't just want the sports world. I want the whole world. And I think sports opens up. It opens up for everything, because everything when it comes to sports, politics and life and different things feed into it. So, hey, as long as I don't get banned off these airways, I'm gonna stick with it.
Well, I do appreciate it, and you'll definitely be back on here very, very, very soon. Have a great day, Ben.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.